Bueno, pues llegamos ahora a nuestra última plática de este Enartes de 2020 y tenemos el honor de contar con la presencia del maestro Peter Sellars, quien es un director de teatro estadounidense, famoso por demás por sus mensajes modernos y óperas, tanto de óperas como de obras clásicas y como contemporáneas. Sellars nació en Pittsburgh, Pensilvania, y estudió en la Universidad de Harvard, graduándose en 1981. Como estudiante realizó una versión de marionetas del ciclo del Niño de Wagner y dirigió una producción minimalista de la obra Tres Hermanas de Anton Chekhov, en la que dispuso grandes abedules en la escena de Loew Drama Center y montó un concierto de los nocturnos de Chopin tocados en un piano suspendido sobre la escena y entrevisto dentro de una caja de gases. Es así como empieza a llamar la atención su carrera y el montaje de Antonio Cleopatra en la piscina de Harvard's Adams House atrajo la atención de la prensa más allá del campus, al igual que su siguiente producción, una versión tecno-industrial del Rey Lear que incluía un Lincoln Continental sobre la escena y un ambiente musical recreado en vivo por el Steel Cello Ensemble. En su año como senior, es decir, como en su último año de universidad, hizo una producción de Orlando de Händel en el American Repertory Theatre en Cambridge, cuyo montaje muy moderno y altamente original atrajo la atención nacional. Después de graduarse, realizó varios estudios en diversas materias relacionadas con la filosofía y las artes escénicas en Japón, en China y en la India. En 1983 y 84, Sellars fue contratado como director de la Boston Shakespeare Company y en 1983 recibió una beca de la Fundación MacArthur. En el 84 fue nombrado director encargado del American National Theatre de Washington, D.C. a la edad de 26 años, un puesto que desempeñó hasta 1986. Ha sido director artístico de Los Ángeles Festival en el año 90 y en el 93, presentando trabajos de artistas como el director iraní Reza Abdo y el dramaturgo Frank Ambris. Sellars dirigió el montaje de una serie de óperas de Mozart, Così fan tutte, montado en una escena de Cape Cod, Las bodas de Fígaro, montado en un apartamento de lujo en la Trump Tower de Nueva York, y Don Giovanni, ambientado en el Harlem hispano de Nueva York. Las obras fueron hechas en colaboración con Emmanuel Music y su director artístico Craig Smith. Las producciones fueron aclamadas por la crítica, televisadas por la PBS y más adelante representadas en Europa. La primera película de Sellars fue El gabinete del Dr. Ramírez, una película muda en color protagonizada por John Cusack, Peter Gallagher, Ron Wouter y Mikhail Baryshnikov. También participó en la película de Jean-Luc Godard, El Rey Lear, en la que fue también co-guionista. Sellars ha sido invitado de muchos festivales como el de Salzburgo, el de Glyndebourne, donde ha montado producciones de varias óperas del siglo XX como el San Francisco de Asís de Oliver Messiaen, el estreno de Matisse de Mahler de Paul Hindemith, Le Grand Macabre de Giorgi Ligeti y con el coreógrafo Mark Morris el estreno de Nixon en China y la muerte de Kinghofer de John Coolidge Adams y Alice Goodman. Ha sido también acreedor al premio Polar Music Prize. Y actualmente, por mencionar solo algunas cosas, pues él es profesor de Artes y Culturas del Mundo en la Universidad de Los Ángeles, UCLA, donde enseña arte como acción social y arte como acción moral. Los montajes de Peter Sellars no han sido ajenos a la controversia y ha sido a menudo criticado por sus propuestas tan radicales en relación a las interpretaciones tan radicales con respecto a aquellas que le daba al autor. Es por demás un honor para nosotros poder contar con su presencia. Los dejo en compañía del señor Sellars y una entrevista que hicimos pregrabada para poder subtitular y que la pudiéramos disfrutar todos. Esto fue todo mi participación en Enartes hasta ahora y ha sido un placer estar con ustedes. Muchas gracias y muy buenas tardes. Okay, so Peter, thank you one more time, even one more time for, on behalf of Enartes, which is this big effort that the Ministry of Culture in Mexico makes in order to promote the mobility of Mexican art abroad and also within Mexico, which, as you may know, of course, assume, is going through a very particular moment, which amongst all the disadvantages and all the frustration, for not being able to put on a big showcasing and bringing all the friends and programmers and presenters from all over the world to Mexico City to, to watch and meet. Um, there are some advantages, and the biggest one is, of course, this big, deep pause to think in a
You
long
should be
term.
recording. You should be recording.
I am.
Oh, okay.
I am already. So,
Okay.
so this is that. This is the big opportunity to think in a long term, and we never, as people who works even as artists and both sometimes and so often both as artists and cultural managers, we always want to think about things in a deep way and never have the time to do so because we have to operate and build and action logistics and festivals and all that. So you know that position perfectly well. This is a time to deepen in the concepts that build the stones upon which we build this particular activity, and one of them is mobility. I don't know what happens to you when you relate mobility and art. You know, so much of art is people, right? And so much of art tours all over the world, and so much of art migrates, and so much of art is forced to run away. And I don't know how we can nowadays think of mobility of art without thinking of migration, without thinking of building new spaces for both flow of art and equality and opportunity, etc. What do you see in this relationship? How do you envision mobility from now on? You often also speak about art as a space to imagine the world we would like it to be. So, how do you imagine mobility, and how should we, think about it and smell it?
Well, I think the virus came to ask us to respond as the human race. It didn't say, "Oh, I'm just going to go here. I'm just going to go there." The virus said, oh, I mean, I think the beginning of the story is the climate had to call up its friend, the virus, and say, "I've been trying to get these people's attention, and they keep not paying attention. And I'm doing these very intense things. I'm sending hurricanes. I'm doing really intense things. They still don't notice. Can you get their attention?" And the virus said to its friend, the climate, "Well, okay, what I could do is maybe just at least get them to stop for a minute. I'm not sure how deep they're going to go, but at least I can get them to stop." And so that was the conversation, and then the virus took over. And you know, both the virus and the climate want us to recognize that this is not something in this part of the world or that part of the world. It's finally something where every part of the world is touched. Every part of the world is part of the climate. Every part of the world is part of the pollution of this planet or the cleansing of it and the caring for it and the caring for. And once you care for the people, then you care for the planet. And so, actually, the message for the virus is to say the planet wants you to care for people, not just for the plants. Please care for the plants. Please care for the animals. Please stop the extinctions. But that in order to do that, you have to care for the people. And the way we take care of people, the way we treat people, all of the love and nurturing and care that needs to happen. The virus, said, what, how do you care for people? What, how do you take care of people? How can you be there for someone? And, and of course, I always think of the Al-Ghazali, the Islamic philosopher from the 10th, 11th century. This beautiful passage in one of my favorite books called The Alchemy of Happiness. There's this beautiful sentence, and Al-Ghazali says, "Sickness is a cord of love. by which God draws those closer to himself he needs to talk to. And of course, when you're ill, you have to step out of your life. All the busyness, all the craziness, suddenly that's over. And you just have to be quiet. And you have to feel things because there's pain. So suddenly everything you've pushed away and said, I'm not going to feel that, I'm not going to feel that, I'm not going to feel that. Suddenly, in that kind of pain, you feel everything. And you're in this space of feeling. You're in this space of incredible sensitivity. And I'm not saying it's a gift that people are dying, not at all. I'm just saying in the United States, we tend to shoot the messenger and forget to read the message. and, and you want to say, well, there is a message. Yes, there is suffering, but usually human beings won't make any changes until there is huge suffering. So the suffering also has to be there. Otherwise, it's like I don't have a drinking problem. I'm fine until finally you really hit the wall. And then finally you say, I have to stop drinking. Human beings are like that. They don't change until it gets really impossible and it gets really horrible. And so we're in this phase where it's horrible. And the question is, can we change? And can we redirect our priorities and what we care about? And can we create a culture of care? Not just a culture of exploitation and, winner takes all and all that stuff, but really, what is a culture of deep care? And if I could just go one more step with deeply the cultures of Mesoamerica and so on, which are about understanding caring for nature is caring for human beings. And the human and the non-human are not different. They're not separate. It's all, the plants are speaking to you. The plants are telling you how to live and how to survive and how to flourish. The plants are telling you they're in communication. And so we need to open up our bandwidth of communication in every way and learn again to hear the plants, learn again to hear the river, learn again to hear the way the earth moves and the way the earth sleeps and the way the earth transforms. And all of those things are just listening again, breathing again, just coming into ourselves again. And of course, what flows are the winds and the tides. And the winds and the tides are beautiful and they flow everywhere. But of course, humans don't get that flow. Otherwise, they would have realized if you make a nuclear weapon, it's not going to just stay here. It's in the wind, it's in the water, it's going to go everywhere. All of that toxicity is everywhere. But what human beings don't know either is that all that love can be everywhere if that's what's on the wind. If this beautiful fragrance of liberation, this beautiful fragrance of pleasure, this beautiful fragrance of joy, this beautiful fragrance of cherishing and of kindness is in the air, we're all susceptible. We're all very susceptible. So the only other thing I would just say is obviously in this time of ridiculous and evil closed borders, of course the walls are mental. The walls are mental before the walls are made out of cement and steel. And our work is with the mental walls. The cement walls will take care of themselves if the mental walls are shifted. And all of this dividing of the world and borders and these people go there and those people go here, all of this is total mental geography. And we are dividing and destroying our own selves, let alone other people, by this kind of thinking and this kind of feeling. And so we really have to move deep, 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 deeply beyond that and create this space of liberation that is the most important thing that we do in performance is shared space. Everything is shared. The water is shared, the air is shared, and we need to share deeply. And as human beings in the Western culture has not really, capitalist culture has not learned very well how to share anything. It's like, this is mine, that will be mine, and I'm taking that from you, and now it's mine. All of this idea, there's just no idea that, in fact, you've never had anything. Everything we've ever had, any of us has ever had, is because somebody shared it with us. And that means ideas and feelings and everything you've ever thought is because of the people who are around you. Is that nothing was ever yours. Everything is always something you're borrowing from somebody who's generous, and or a group of people who are generous. And generosity is the only reason any of us exist. Because if we had to pass a test every time, none of us would pass the test. So a bunch of people said, well, you don't pass the test. No, you're not good enough, but we're going to offer you love anyway. And we're going to include you, and we're going to create a ritual that you can be part of. And so that's our hope now.
You, you know, you make me think so much about when the work of us as artists, or just all the efforts of so much people, ONGs and humanitarian assistance organizations, make a huge effort about on releasing migrants from, you know, their stigmatization, when it has to do with not seeing at that generosity that inhabits any person who either forcefully or willingly needs to move from one place to the other, and brings all that knowledge and new healing systems and new ways of understanding. There's such abundance of generosity. This makes me think of mobility in this particular case as something impulsed by something that we ultimately experience as generosity, right? Movement, there's generosity in movement itself, apparently. And we are trying we try to imagine models of work in when it has to do with mobility of cultures, I think, and technology of um, and technologies of communication that are not unilateral, that are not binary only, that move in like a flower, which I know you appreciate that figure a lot, in every possible direction, right? We do get these messages from the elements and that surround us, and from the, like you say, the wind, and from the singing, which singing is made, but about is made by nothing but wind itself.
And it's the way the whole planet breathes. And it's and if I may say, what's on the wind are the birds. And the birds, which literally spend half the year in Mexico or half the year in Brazil, and then they're here with me in California or in Canada. And this beautiful thing, for the birds, it's not a question. Of course, you're going to live here and you're going to live there. And you're flowing all the time. And to see this little bird that weighs a couple ounces, fly for 3,000 miles. It's like, every year twice. I mean, that's just incredible. And so for me, I mean, the image that we're really given, the most beautiful image of migration, are these birds, these tiny little birds, which go through these huge journeys so they can be back in Brazil. And so they can be, back in Mexico, and then in Canada, and then in New York, and then in California. And these migrations are so beautiful and moving, and they are the most, for me, that's the real first meaning of migration, is these, like, millions of birds every year, twice a year, the sky filled with birds, all moving, and they know they just, and doing something so complicated and crazy and logistically, like, impossible. And you say, what do they have? Something so deep. There's something so deep in the being that says, no, I
Yes.
have to go here now. So for me, that is the implant. That is the actual nature that is inside us. And this nature that, and of course, you know me, I'm obsessed with this fact that we all had many lives, and many, and I think I've told you the story about when my mother lived in Japan. Her best friend was a woman named Tokiko-san, and this Tokiko-san was the was a was the great teacher in an ikebana school. And ikebana is the Japanese art of flower arrangement, where you can just shift the whole energy of the universe by arranging three flowers. And 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 she was the dynastic head of the school. The school had gone back 500 years, and it was hers now. And her family is one of the great ikebana families in Japan. And like this, they have their own ikebana style, everything. She visited Cairo and realized she was Egyptian in a previous life. She felt so at home. She knew everything. So in Cairo, she was so deeply at home. And now she lives half the year in Japan and half the year in Cairo, and she has a Japanese flower arranging school in Cairo. I mean, that is reality. Reality are the songs that you listen to that your friends would never think you like that music, because something in you does love that music. It's not your geography, and yet it's totally part of you, and some part of you responds every time you hear this piece of music from somewhere else. And so for me, that's the other traveling that we do all the time. Is that, of course, our heart is somewhere else, our spirit is somewhere else, our memory is from somewhere else. And we're touching all of these things from other lifetimes and other geographies. And all of those things are totally inside us and want to be expressed.
Speaking of which, um, shutting down a communication is, I've heard in your words also, a source of violence by definition. We spend so much time thinking about violence in this country because we are surrounded by it, and because it becomes like an everyday kind of thing. The rise of violence. It's like saying the weather. How's the level of violence today? Um, and at the same time, we live also trapped in this idea of migration and movement being the communication avenue it is, as a problem as well. So it's interesting how we want violence to go away, and at the same time, we shut communication channels constantly. Um, and also, you've spoken about the relationship between theater and democracy. So in this new reality, something that is may not be new are these two things. We need stage art in one hand in order to think and imagine the new ways we want to, but at the same time we desperately need to open avenues of communication in every possible way.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's like in your own family. Who's not talking to who? That's how do we help that? Because the fact that this person isn't talking to that person is horrible violence and is going to explode in something terrible eventually. And also has daily hurt with it. I mean, it just hurts every day. And 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 then this weird weird thing that we communication now is in the hands of corporations, and and some days they're nice, like a New York Times reporter who means well. Some days they're not nice, then they're lying. But but just to say, if we really here in the United States had been able to hear directly from parents and children who were separated from each other at the Texas border, instead of hearing about it from a reporter, if we could hear those parents speak and those children speak, that policy would have been over 3 years ago. Because we're not in direct communication with each other, and because we think we know each other, but we've never spoken. And so we assume all these things about other people and what they're like and what they're this and they're that, but we had no personal exposure to them. We've never met. And right now we're living in a situation where everybody has an image of everyone else, but they've never met. And I think theater was invented to say, let's meet. Let's, and you know what? Let's have something to eat afterwards. It's really because the real way you meet is breaking bread. And theater is the excuse to the next step is breaking bread. And but we haven't met. And if people in the United States ever met anybody from Jalisco, it would be a totally different picture, right? And instead, you have this, nightmare of the statistics of the 60,000 in the caravan, and like, excuse me, just don't meet 60,000 people. Meet one mother and one kid. Spend an afternoon with them. Your life will never be the same. Their life will never be the same. It's this absence of direct contact that's our real crisis. And so, how do we find each other? We have to be introduced. There has to be a safe way to meet. There has to be a way to meet that's enjoyable, where nobody is going to lose anything, nobody's going to risk anything, but everybody is going to be taken care of, and that's called theater. And this gathering place, because we don't have a place in the world where we gather. So there needs to be a place made where we can actually gather, and we have to know that place is safe. And we have to say, it's not my place, it's not your place, it's another place, and we can gather there. And so theater is invented to create this place that we can gather. And that's why wherever you are, rituals are the key, of course. And why, for me, I live with my whole life that I think of as Mexico is deep ritual. Deep ritual of like, what are the rituals we need to live together? What are the rituals we need to remind ourselves of our priorities? What are the rituals that we need to participate in to realize, oh, this is us? And that a ritual shapes a family. A family is entirely made of rituals. That a community is made of rituals. That being human on earth is made of rituals. And what rituals do we share, and what rituals can we enter, and what rituals can we deepen our presence on earth by participating in? And so I think, theater, one edge of theater, went towards performance and people who applaud at the end. But most of theater really, and if I think of it in Mexico, through history until now, it's not about applause. It's like the pleasure is that we were all here. And the ritual made us recognize that we're all here in incredible ways, and also made us realize that the land we're standing on has many histories. And we are stepping into those histories. And we have to know that that's the river we're swimming in, are these complicated histories. And so all these rituals are about putting on these costumes to realize, oh, right, you're part of this history that relives and relives and has new versions and new versions of itself. And we can't just make the world what we want this minute, because it's not a blank piece of paper. It's layer after layer of history that we have in our bodies, that we have in our hearts, that we have in our minds. And the ritual allows us to recognize that we're participating in a super layered history. And we all have a role, but maybe next year we'll take a different role. and and also, what the Moriscos are. I mean, all the layers of what the Moriscos represent. It's a very, it's so rich to find this edge, which gives everybody both historical roots, spiritual consciousness, and an act of imagination and play.
And freedom at the same time.
Exactly. That just says, okay, just play. Recognize the game of it also. And stop living and dying and bleeding with this. Actually step back from that.
Mm-hmm.
see the play of it. See the play of it. This is a play. And the word play is what the gods do. It is the cosmic soccer game. It is this football that is really deep and really light at the same time. And lets the spirit of lightness, the spirit of release, the spirit of you don't just be in it and underneath it, but the release of it and the dance of it and the music of it. Let the dance take you. Let the music take you. And let the steps of participating in the ritual, the night before where everybody has to eat together and be together and drink together and prepare the ritual. And already we all know whatever mask we're going to wear tomorrow, we're already together now. And then the masks, and then taking off the masks, and letting the identities flow.
Would you say that's the way to approach also the fact that now we see each other so much through Zoom meetings and streamings, and do you think we need to approach it with the same lightness, with the same stepping behind? What do we need to adapt in order to make this also an efficient, an effective ritual? Because this is going to kind of stay for a while.
Yeah, I've been spending the last 7 months working on Zoom. I'm making a Zoom piece, which is unbelievably beautiful. And I'm really saying, like anything, technology is just, technology is a pencil. And you can use the pencil to draw a beautiful picture of your daughter or to design a neutron bomb. It's a pencil. you know so what are you going to use the pencil for? That's how I feel about Zoom. What do you want to use it for? And and what is its beauty as an art form? And I'm making a project right now with three artists. One is a Chinese calligrapher in Hangzhou, who's now about to be 80 years old, I think, but a master calligrapher, beautiful, beautiful, beautiful calligrapher. Uh, uh, a young South Indian singer, sacred singer, who's also a great jazz singer. And she is in a Sufi chapel in the woods outside of Portland, Oregon. And then Michael Schumacher, the genius dancer from the Frankfurt Ballet, who we love, who's in his apartment in Amsterdam. And we're collaborating in real time from three artists, three art forms on three different continents. And it's 3 in the afternoon in China, midnight here in LA, 3 a.m. in New York, where they're doing the technical work, and 9 in the morning where Michael is, where the morning light is coming in his window. And we're all meditating on this beautiful Buddhist text, the Vimalakirti Sutra, that I love very deeply, but that's narrated by a person who's ill. The main character is sick, and he's lying in his sickbed. And Buddha tells his disciples, go visit this guy. He's sick. You could learn something from him. And the idea that you could learn something from sickness and from a sick person is incredible. And he speaks from his sickbed. And they knew already, it's from the first century. They already knew in the first century that you listen to somebody who's ill differently. Like you have to listen. What are they trying to say? Are these their last words? They're speaking through pain. What are they trying to communicate? And you have to be quiet and really listen and pay attention and hear what they're saying, but hear what maybe they can't say. You have to pay attention really deeply and differently, and the way you listen has to be caring and suddenly has concern and suddenly has love, and also you realize maybe you're in a dangerous place. So all of those things are. So these three artists meditate on 2 pages of this Buddhist text from the 1st century on sickness and on Zoom. And they're each artist is in quarantine isolation and yet at the same time connected. And so both the loneliness and the strange, beautiful connectivity that exists in human life, what I always call the internet before the internet, which was always there, in which you know someone's thinking of you and you can feel it when you're really depressed or you can feel it when you're really happy. All that's because somebody's thinking of you somewhere. All of your own personal weather is not being created here. It's being created somewhere else by other people. And you receive it as weather. But it's your emotional weather. But it's weather created by other people. And so, how is that flowing? What is that in the air? So anyway, I'm working on Zoom and I'm in a state of deep happiness because the ability to connect is happening. And like anything, a portrait of someone with a pencil is not like a photograph, but it's actually a beautiful drawing by pencil, and you feel something of that person. And Zoom's low quality resolution is so awful, and it dulls your senses, and that's what's so exhausting because you're looking at a bad quality image. We have these nice young people in upstate New York who call themselves liminal, and like they're 12 years old, but they're writing new code and they're creating new bandwidth for Zoom so you can hear the range of the human voice, which is phenomenal. And you can see the hairs in Wong Dongling's brush as he's writing. And he's writing out the text. Ganavia is chanting the text, and Michael is lying in his bed, ill, and dancing the illness. And and the and of course that also comes from a old Chinese East Asian tradition of when you're recovering from illness, you go on Saturday mornings to the temple with your ink and your paper and you copy out a text of a sutra. And that's part of healing, is to just write a sacred text every Saturday. And that's time where your mind and body and heart all come into alignment as you just copy out a sacred text quietly every week. So it's a little bit also that healing ritual. And then the idea is that we'll stream this because the beauty of Zoom is it can go places where theater can't go. So we will stream it into hospitals and hospices. And we will stream it across Brazil. We will stream it in India. We can take it anywhere where it's very hard for live performance to go. And because it's on Zoom, actually, it can visit anywhere. And then also, people watching it can decide to pin this artist or that artist at different times. And so, just like live performance, where you decide where you want to watch, you can decide. I love that. And and so and so suddenly the piece is becomes, and now we're actually, the places we'll stream it, we're inviting doctors and patients to speak from there to talk about what is the virus telling us? What are the lessons of the year 2020? What needs to change? How do we imagine changing, making the changes we have to make? And so we'll create this website that has all of this input from doctors, nurses, patients, families in all of these places that becomes a memorial for the year 2020, a record of the year 2020, but also, because we'll keep going the next couple of years, the steps forward from this year. How do we move forward from here? And it will be a project that has artists, spiritual leaders, and first responders, and patients who survived, or families of patients who didn't make it, or families of the patients that have survived. All of this sense of, could we talk about this? Because for me, it's so strange. The cultural world is, saying, "Oh my God, we're in a crisis," and I want to say, "Excuse me, have you noticed your crisis is not the main topic? There's a much bigger crisis going on. Please, would you please just get on your knees in the dust and be with the rest of us for a moment?" That's what I want to say to the art world. I want to just say, "Excuse me, the whole planet is right now on their knees in the dust. Would you please join us? Would you please recognize that most people can't pay their rent, can't feed their children, don't know what tomorrow is, have no chance of employment now that those jobs left and will not return ever? Please, let's just ask the art world to do what art used to do, which is to be there to grieve and comfort and be in solidarity,
And
and
listen.
to just listen and be present and be a witness and be a friend." And so for me, this is, the cultural world was running around saying, "What do we do next?" And you say, "Excuse me, just stop it and come join us here on the ground and be with us. Just be with us and let's see what we all do together, because none of us knows what's next." And the crisis is a deep one. It's not my crisis, it's not your crisis, it's our crisis. And let's come through it together.
We are all ill.
Yeah. So anyway, so that's a little bit, my feeling is right now that the arts have always had a very deep role, which is to offer comfort in times of unbearable pain and to offer insight in times of mass misinformation, lying, deception, obfuscation, and denial, and to offer healing, which is a path to being your true self, not being this hijacked self, but really being, how do you restore your actual self and move forward as yourself, not as someone who you thought you had to be. And so all of those are, so for me, a little bit, my sense of the future of the arts is also that the future of the arts is, I don't ever think of art in its own category. And I think most indigenous people never have. You know, art is there to make everything else work. That's all it is. And so everything else worked much better. So art needs to be part of the health system. Art needs to be part of the justice system. Art needs to be part of the business world. Art needs to be part of designing cities. Art needs to be part of everything that is not art. And then art can be art.
Thank you so much, Peter. That was really beautiful. I mean, I'm trying to imagine now what of all the questions that I wanted to put on the table in order to have this conversation with you has not been touched, and I just keep on going up and down all what I wrote these days, and of course I wouldn't have anything else to, not of course, but like I wouldn't have anything else to add to that now, and I think this is a beautiful way to address what we intuitively believe that it would be great to listen to you talking about. Um, to listen is not so much sometimes about imagining a new thing, but actually to listen to the one that it already exists. That was a great twist of the expectations of this conversation. and of course music, which you love, I don't know how much. But it's a great teacher for listening to. So I don't know, I don't know, we might just edit at some point the end of the conversation somehow. And
If you like, but also, every moment with you, Tareke, also has its own magic. So I don't worry. There's nothing that doesn't go out there and add beauty to the world. And again, everybody imagines that facing reality is hard. And that's why, as artists, we say, oh, no, no, but there's also beauty. Here's the beauty. Because actually, what's painful is not facing reality. What's really hard is denial. Not facing reality is what's very painful, very difficult, and very upsetting. Whereas facing reality is such a relief. It's like finally doing the dishes. It's like they're done. It's so nice not to put it off. It's so nice to actually deal with it because many things can actually be solved by just dealing with them. And and but people are scared to deal with the things that need to be dealt with, and so we have to say, excuse me, this isn't scary, this is beautiful. Please recognize the beauty of dealing with difficult subjects. Please recognize the joy, the release of we finally spoken. The person I didn't speak to for 25 years, we finally spoke.
all
the,
those
the the
yeah.
the joy of it, and you've worked yourself up in a state where you say, no, no, I can't do that. It's too much. It's too much. And in fact, it's beautiful. And so there just have to be artists to just say, it's beautiful. Where is the beauty? Here is the beauty. Just recognize the beauty and go forward, rather than say, oh, that's too hard, I'm going back. It's like, no, step forward into the beauty of this. And most things that can be solved are ready to be solved. And there are enough people on earth to do everything that needs to be done. It's just a question of empowerment, that people feel they're qualified, they're ready. And most people say, oh, no, no, I'm not qualified. And you say, excuse me, you have been deeply qualified by all the gods forever. You are qualified. Please step forward. And again, that art can handle that. Art can give someone this space of confidence, of quiet repose, of a space of deep understanding, of equilibrium, of equanimity. We can breathe together. And again, create a space where together is the point. We can actually share space that we never thought we could share, with people we never thought we could share it with. And little by little, that turns into relationships, and that turns into lifetimes. And it's culture, it's agriculture. It goes from a little seed, and actually, eventually, there's fruit. So, and the seed doesn't look like the fruit, but guess what? The fruit has a seed in it. So it's like, it's so. Anyway, just to say, for me, this is such a beautiful moment, and we have to really, I think, as artists, anytime it's a official crisis, that's a good sign, because crisis means we can't keep doing what we're doing. That's the only thing crisis means, is that everything we're doing isn't working. So we really have to do something different. That's a very powerful moment for artists to step forward.
No back, no,
Yeah, it's time
no
for something
nostalgia.
different. No, there has to be something different. The crisis proves that this can't continue. There must be something else now. We need something new. What is that? Hello, call the artists.
Peter, thank you so much. Thank you so much for your time, and hope to see you back very soon. in your beautiful presence, whether if that's a physical manifestation, geographically provable or not.
Gobierno de México.